Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Jaideep Sarangi, Associate Professor, Department of English, Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary College, University of Calcutta, Calcutta, West Bengal. Friends, we are into Module 25, Spanish Tragedy. The module was written and prepared by Professor Bishesha Chakraborty, who teaches English at Jharram Raj College, West Bengal. Friends, in this particular module, we are going to talk about the date of composition, authorship, elements, features of the Spanish tragedy, and we are going to place the Spanish tragedy in the Senecan format of revenge theatre. So actually we shall contextualize it in the theatrical tradition as well as sentiments as well as motif of the time and the space in which it was written. Keats' Spanish tragedy plays an important role in the history of early drama in the Elizabethan period. So we cannot deny its importance in the whole gamut of growth and development of shaping up English drama in the early part of the Elizabethan period. Friends, highly accepted and prominent in its time, Keats' the Spanish tragedy established a new genre in English tragedy, a genre called revenge play or revenge tragedy. So by the term revenge tragedy, you can easily understand how important it is going to be in the history of English drama. Its plot contains numerous violent murders, comprises as one of its characters personification of revenge and different motifs of the Senecan theatre. The Spanish tragedy was often referred to as an important documentation of revenge play or source text later on, which inspired many playwrights. We can also associate that this play inspired William Shakespeare to write Hamlet. Friends, the date of composition. In the introduction to the play Bartholomew Fair, 1614, Ben Jonson alludes to the Spanish tragedy, and he says, 5, 20 and 30 years old. It is taken literally. That means the date of writing the play would be between 1584 and 1589. Most evidences indicate to a completion of date 1588, mentioning that the play makes no reference to Spanish Armada because of possible allusion to the play to Nash's performance to Green's Manaphon and in 1589, and due to its evidence the year 1587 remains the most likely year for the completion of the year. Now after the date, let us talk about the performance. The Admiral's men discovered Keats' original play on 7 January 1597 and performed it 12 times to 19 July. They hold another performance conjointly with Pembroke's men on 11 October the same year. The records of Philip Henslow suggest that the play was on stage again on 1601 and 1602. English actors performed the play on tour in Germany on 1601. Both in German and Dutch adaptations were available. After this, we must talk about the authorship of the play. All the early editions were anonymous. The first indication of the author of the play was written in 1773, when Thomas Hawkins, the editor of 3-volume play collection, cited a brief quotation from the Spanish tragedy in Thomas Heywood's Apology for Actors, which Heywood attributes to Mr. Kidd, M. Kidd. The style of the Spanish tragedy is considered such a good match with Kidd's style in his other extant play, Cornelia. The scholars and critics have universally recognized Kidd's authorship of the play. After authorship, we should discuss about the sources. Many writers have influenced the Spanish tragedy, notably Seneca and those from medieval tradition. The play is presumably Senecan with its bloody outline, rhetoric of the terrible, the character of ghost, characteristic of revenge as the subject. The characters of the ghost of the Andreas and revenge form a chorus that reminds one of the Tantalus fury of the Senecan Thyestes. The ghost narrates his journey into the underworld and calls the penalty of the end of the play and bears the influence of Thyestes, Agamemnon, and Phaedra, the use of onomastic rhetoric, and also Senecan. So, Seneca plays an important role in influencing Kidd. The Spanish tragedy dazzles with allusions. The Spanish tragedy was extremely influential and references allusions, and it makes use of allusions of different categories. Ben Jonson mentions Hieronimo, Catiline's Revels, Every Man in His Humour, Thomas Dekker, Thomas Tomkin, Ormond Pamuk, and all talk about the allusions of the play. And allusions make the play really special. Now, after allusions, let us talk about the plot of the play. The plot of the Spanish tragedy is intricate and bears to Shakespeare's Hamlet. Horatio is the son of Hieronimo, the Marshal of Spain. He and Lorenzo capture the Battle of Balsger, the son of Viceroy of Portugal. Balsger makes love to Belimperia, and Lorenzo's sister is encouraged by Lorenzo. They discover that Belimperia loves Horatio and kills him. Hieronimo finds out the murderers of his son is mad for revenge. He arranges for a performance for himself. Belimperia, Lorenzo, Balthazar in the cast. In course of this play, within play, Lorenzo and Balthazar are killed, with Belimperia and Hieronimo take their own life. Let us talk about some critical things about the play. A brief analysis of the play proves that Kidd, as a dramatist, had arisen capable of devising a well-sustained plot. He was not so bold as an innovator as Christopher Marlowe, but his machinery was superb and based on Seneca. It was from that he drew the ghost and the messenger for his equivalent under the influence. He frequently employed the chorus, but classical quotes and the characterization are really to mention. But his dialogue at this best, his quality of passionate directness, and his simplicity, essential to the richest and the dramatic achievement that you can think of. In this way, Kidd made a notable step forward, and he made a commendable journey in the growth and development of English drama during the early part of the Elizabethan period. Now, some of the major themes of this particular drama. The first important thing that comes to our mind is the theme of revenge. The given title explains that there is some kind of harm that has been put on the main character to make him want to seek revenge. Revenge, however, is not the only theme. One key theme is that of wealth and power. This theme is apparent exclusively in the actions of Balthazar. He kills Horatio in the beginning to achieve power that in turn gives him wealth. This is also clear with the character of Lorenzo. However, at the end of the play, he tries to convince the king to get rid of Hieronimo. Lorenzo knows that the absence of Hieronimo he will become more powerful and closer to the king. The play also has a theme of revenge in historical context. The play in a way reenacts the conflict between Spain and England. So the play has a political categorization as well. Kyd takes this opportunity to patronize the Spanish Armada and to make a political joke. This is a very popular Elizabethan and Greek tragedies. The play is also based some sort of defense mechanism for the English. Now about the structure. Keeping in mind the play's central concern, Kyd has structured the play masterfully. Not only as the ironies are brilliant, but also the characterization is superb. Viceroy's mourning his son anticipates the expands, and Hieronymo's mourning, both weep and the death of a son, protest fortune's adversaries, and when becomes the main character, the plot begins to unfurl. It becomes a revenge story for its own purpose. The Senecan elements. Critics declare the Spanish tragedy bears the resemblance to a Senecan tragedy. It carries the Senecan flavor both in blood and spirit. The style is heightened and passionate to meet the requirements of the Senecan plays. The division of acts, the emphasis on blood, climax, revenge itself, and all these make the play look like the most famous ancient plays. By means of soliloquies, Kyd's added play a special charm to it. The unheard conspiracies, murders, tangled in enmities, the foul spirits, all become part and parcel of the plot structure. The modern productions. The Royal Shakespeare Company staged a production of the play in 1996. Directed by Michael Beyond, the cast included Peter Wett as a Hieronymo, Geoffrey Wickham as a King of Spain, Paul Benitel as a Duke of Castle. An amateur production of the Spanish tragedy was performed 2 to 6 June 2009 by students of the Oxford University in the second squad of the Oriel College, Oxford. Another amateur production was presented by the Hyperion Shakespeare Company 21st to 30th October 2010 with the students from the University of Harvard. So friends, to conclude, we can really contextualize the Spanish tragedy in the context of early Elizabethan plays. We can really refer to this play as one of the exemplary plays based on the theme of revenge, bloodshed, murder, and terrifying incidents on the stage. It follows up the tradition of Seneca, and it has an important role to play with in the plays that's to come during the later half of the Elizabethan period. In a way, we can say it inspired also Shakespeare to write Hamlet on the theme of revenge. On the whole, this Kyd's Spanish tragedy is an important play written during the early Elizabethan period, though its authorship, its date of publication, date of staging, all become part of controversy over a period of time. For hyperlinks, friends, please look up there.
I'm Cassius, and welcome back to the Shakespeare Minute. Well, it was only going to be so long that I could hold out. Today, we go beyond the Bard, discussing for the first time a play not by Shakespeare, but from the Shakespeare era, the Spanish Tragedy by Thomas Kyd. Okay, so I love this play, I directed it, blah blah blah. But what the heck is it, and why do I love it so much? Well, the Spanish Tragedy by Thomas Kyd is none other than the first modern revenge drama, and one of the first, if not the first, modern tragedy. Based largely on the tropes from the Roman tragedian Seneca, the Spanish tragedy set the tone for later tragedies of the era and has obvious influence over Titus Andronicus and Hamlet. The first reaction that a lot of people get upon reading the Spanish tragedy is a sense that either Shakespeare or Kyd ripped the other off, because this play is a lot like Hamlet. I mean, it does feature a ghost, a story of revenge in a court where the villains smile like perfectly sane people. There's a climactic play within a play scene, of course, and there is an insanely high body count. Also, it features a man who is driven to near or feigned madness under the pressure of figuring out how to take his revenge. So, you know, nothing like Hamlet at all. So let's do a mini plot summary here. I'm not going to apologize for spoilers, mostly since the likelihood of you getting within 1,000 miles of a production of this play is damn tiny. I recommend it on the page too, though, but to discuss it we will need to take a moment to look at the plot and the characters. So here goes, and my apologies for the craziness. During the now concluded war between Spain and Portugal, a Spanish courtier/soldier, Don Andrea, has been killed by the Prince of Portugal, Don Balthazar. Balthazar was captured by Andrea's friend, Horatio, when Portugal lost, but the Spanish prince Lorenzo also lays claim to the prisoner. Oh yeah, there's also a guy named Horatio in this. He's a kind young man who acts out of love for a friend who has died, so you know, nothing like that other Horatio. The dead Andrea returns to watch the living, with the spirit of revenge following him and promising that he will eventually see the downfall of the Prince of Portugal who killed him. Horatio's heroism wins the heart of Andrea's former lover and Lorenzo's sister, Bellimperia, the Princess of Spain, but her father, the Duke of Castile, and her uncle, the King, want to marry her off to Balthazar to cement the truce that concluded the war. Since he killed her first lover, though, she's not particularly interested. Lorenzo, that's Bellimperia's brother and the Prince of Spain, for those of you not keeping track, decides that to cement the truce for sure, he'll kill Horatio, thus forcing his sister to marry the Portuguese prince. He, Balthazar, and their two servants kill Horatio, forcing Hieronymo, Horatio's father and a chief justice type figure, into the play. He spends the rest of the play figuring out how to navigate the world of the court while trying to find out who killed his son. And once he realizes just how high up the guilty parties are in the court pecking order, trying to plot their deaths. How he does this, I will leave as an exercise for the reader, for that is the end of the play and I don't want to give everything away, but suffice it to say there's a lot of death, and he teams up with the horrified and toweringly angry Bellimperia in the process, making Bellimperia one of the more active, empowered female figures I've seen in this era of tragedy. The main difference between this play and Hamlet is that the morality in the Spanish tragedy is much more black and white. This is a classical, not Christian moral schematic. We have the Greek and Roman gods here, not the New Testament forgiving Jesus God. That means if you're a bad person and you die, there is no hope for a conversion. There is no possibility that you will pray away your sins, that you will be forgiven. Revenge won't taint your killer either. If you deserved it, they can kill you. End of story. Men can take justice into their own hands if the courts and the heavens won't give it to them. And this heady, amoral message is gripping, but it is certainly not Hamlet. This means that ultimately Hieronymo, while a thrilling main character with lots of Hamlet-ish qualities, isn't a tragic hero. He never has the tragic error that Hamlet does. He spends most of his time figuring out who his son's killers are. This is something that Hamlet doesn't have to do, this whole logistical plot of figuring out who to go after. And then he just verifies his intel and sets up a completely nutter's plan to execute his revenge. In fact, this play isn't the tragedy of any individual character, but rather the tragedy of Spain itself, as Spain itself is the entity that has the arrogance, which after a great victory leaves it ready for a great fall. That said, the play is incredible. Hieronymo's speeches predict Hamlet's in so many ways. You know this speech here?
To be or not to be.
Yeah, we have suicidal tendencies in Hieronymo's speeches too. Hieronymo also has a moment where he sees a ghost of his son that no one else sees. This old man comes to him with a case of his murdered son, since Hieronymo is a justice, and Hieronymo starts to see this old man as his son instead of a citizen with a case for him. Bellimperia, as I was saying, the Spanish princess, is a shocking female character, unlike any Shakespeare heroine you've ever seen. Unlike any of Shakespeare's young romantic heroines, she has had another lover in the past, and she is still desirable as a love interest and a compelling secondary protagonist, despite not falling into the typical maid, wife, widow dynamic so cleanly. She is technically in the widow category because her former lover is now dead, but she definitely comes across as the romantic character that we can desire and feel for. She also calls the shots in her relationship, and it's much more her story than that of her luckless lover, Horatio. She does sacrifice herself for love at the end, but she aims her emotions rather than submits to them, and she also gets one of the end of play onstage revenge kills herself solo, and that onstage killing is something that Shakespearean women almost never do. Okay, Regan kills a no-name servant in Lear, and Margaret, with the help of a few men, kills her nemesis in Henry VI Part 3. This is cooler. The vicious violence and bitter amorality of the Spanish tragedy caused it to fall from favor into relative obscurity over the centuries. But right at the time of its writing, it was the single biggest tragedy in England for decades, throughout Shakespeare's time writing as well. When Richard Burbage died, that great actor who originated the role of Hamlet, along with many others, his elegy began, "No more young Hamlet, old Hieronymo," since these were two roles that he had played. Hieronymo was listed second only to Hamlet, and the other roles listed from Shakespeare come later on in the poem. This play was huge, and for good reason. The world of the play is dark and vicious in an incredibly over-the-top yet honestly horrifying way. The villains are mind-bogglingly evil, and the mourning from the various characters is soaringly beautiful. Also, the idea that people might take justice into their own hands is incredibly empowering and really speaks to a kind of Renaissance-era view of going back to the classical way of thinking. Honestly, you might, as a Shakespeare fan, think that such heady, vicious violence is kind of beneath us, but the revenge drama continues to be compelling to the Western psyche in a big way, and the first modern example of that kind of plot is a damn fine entry into the genre. I have linked in the video description to a place where you can read this play online, and I've also linked to a YouTube video of Derek Jacobi as Hieronymo in a reading of part of the play. I believe it's the mid-act 3 to the end, if everything that I saw there is still there. And it's a screenplay that was not ultimately produced, but it's really fun to see Derek Jacobi and a few other people reading these roles, which are not performed all that often. So, for our first episode of Beyond the Bard, I am Cassius with the Shakespeare Minute. Till next time, think of the world.